So we ran those, and everybody's like, the feel of it is phenomenal, right? Well, the Monarch ink combined with the Stampinator on an AS color, which is what this is, it's like the best.
Welcome to the latest season of the Aussie Screen Printing Club, the podcast that's all about the commercial end of screen printing.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeremy Ray from Rockhill Screen Printing. We're located in Rockhill, South Carolina, which is right outside of Charlotte, if you're familiar with the geography in the U.S. Charlotte, North Carolina, right on the borderline of that state, and Rockhill and, well, South Carolina and North Carolina, they just call it the Carolinas. So we do screen printing and embroidery. We do large format digital graphic printing, such as banners and things like that, decals. We promotional items. I mean, we ship those out, or we do that all online. But for the most part, that's kind of what we do. The weather here in Charlotte right now is Rockhill is about 75 degrees. And forgive me, I got my garage door open because it's 75 Fahrenheit. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's in the 20s, I guess.
You have your jacket on.
I do. It is not 75 here. Of course, where you are, it's 5 p.m.-ish, and where I am, it's 7 a.m. And yeah, look, it took me 10 minutes to defrost the car this morning. It's about 2 degrees coming down the road, and the sun's just coming up, really. So yeah, we're in winter, you're in glorious summer, but you had a big, long winter this year as well, didn't you?
Yeah, literally. It was a long winter, but it wasn't like snowy or anything. We don't get snow. We're in the South.
Yeah.
So we'll get cold days, but nothing too crazy. It's mostly light jacket, hoodie, basically wear a hoodie all the time in the winter.
Yeah. Okay.
That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. You're sort of just north on the east side of Florida, really, aren't you? That kind of area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 5 hours away from Jacksonville, Florida, 8 hours away from Disney, 3 hours away from Myrtle Beach, and 3 hours away from the mountains. So
wow.
Geographically, I can go to the snow really quick. In about 2.5 hours I can get to the snow. And do the skiing and all that. They have all the the ski slopes. We're right on the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yep.
We're the foothills. So it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, wow. Sounds
great
wonderful.
Place to live. Yeah. I'm originally from Toledo, Ohio. So Ohio has long winters, even longer winters. Yeah.
Plenty of snow up there.
Plenty of snow, lots of lake effect.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So
yeah, I've never got down to either of the Carolinas. I used to do a fair bit of business in the US, but not in that area or in Florida at all, really. I guess Georgia, a little bit in the south, and Texas over there.
Right there. I'm right there.
Yeah.
Right by the Georgia.
So
I go to Savannah a lot. So.
Okay. What kind of a week have you had so far?
So Monday was Memorial Day for us. So, and that's a national holiday. So we had off. So I was on holiday over the weekend, took a 4-day holiday, and went to Nashville, Tennessee for the music and the fun.
Nice.
So I went to Music City, USA, and that was a blast. And then so we traveled Monday back, and now today's our first really day in here. And it was, how it is when you come back from holiday, it's chaos when you got 9 employees, kind of, what do we do? So so it always starts off as chaos on those days, but we got out of here on time today, so that's good.
That's good. So
Um,
was there like a lull in the morning when you started? You went, yeah,
yeah, because you have to burn the screens or whatever, because usually all that stuff's prepped the day before.
yeah,
But when we're itching to get on vacation on Thursday, nothing gets done towards the end of that day, right?
yeah.
Just let's get out of here, and then yeah, so yeah, we were scrambling a little bit this morning, but yeah, we got the screens burnt for today. In fact, it's funny, we have an Impro we just got, so which is a auto reclaim, and but it
Oh
also
wow,
does
okay.
washout.
Yep.
So it's it's from the Netherlands. Anyways, Impros, yes, yeah, I think it's from the Netherlands. But so I had my screen room guy burn the screens, and I was like, hey, let's talk about workflow. Let's, what I want you to do is burn a couple screens, or expose a couple screens, and then stick them in the Impro unit. But remember, you got to switch it to washout instead of reclaim. And he
Oh,
goes, yes, no problem. And he goes, all right. And he goes, and I got to adjust the pressure, right? And I'm like, yep. And so I go, I'll help you with the workflow to just kind of get it going, and then burn two, stick them in the machine, come in, burn two more, come out, stick them in the machine. The first two should be done. So he get the rotation going.
yeah.
He got four screens deep before he realized that he didn't. It was the first two washed completely out, and I said, he goes, oh, they got stuck. So we thought, oh, they got stuck. So we started taking the machine apart to see where they got stuck, and saw that they were stuck. But then he stuck two more in, and then I looked down and I'm like, you never changed the pressure of the. So he's
Wow.
like, oh no. So we basically burnt four. Well, we basically had four screens in the machine, and two kind of going in. So we had to redo all five screens, and one made
Mm.
it through. So
Oh,
just to start the day off, we you know
it's not what you
ruined
need.
five screens. So
So how long have you had that? You found that useful? Like
we
it's
just got it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I went to Print Hustlers conference in uh, Texas last year, and got to meet Ryan Moore from Ryanette in Made Labs. And so I just had a good conversation with him, and we were talking, and he was walking through the equipment that they had at Made Labs, and they had one there. And I was like, yeah, I can't justify that. And he goes, well, does your employee that does it, does he call off sick, call out sick? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, and he probably wants vacation days, right? Yeah. And he probably gets paid per the hour, but he wants benefits, right? Yeah. So he's like, this doesn't call out. It doesn't require a salary. It doesn't, you just got to pay it. You got to pay it. So do this cost savings analysis
Mm.
of what it takes that person to just, you know, reclaim screens. And literally, we got so busy um, that he was doing 25 to 30 screens a day
Yeah.
of just nonstop power washing, pressure washing, scrubbing, pressure washing. So I was and that's one of those. It's the most important job in the shop.
Mm.
If those screens aren't clean, nothing else works, right?
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
so I just basically said, me and my wife started talking. She's my business partner, and we start talking about like what makes sense. And she's like, what makes sense is we can't lose Jason, our screen room guy. We can't. We're wearing him out. So let's just go get it. And it's a hefty price. I mean, it
It's a
was
big
about
difference.
45,000 US. But for the next 5 or 6 years, you're paying a lease payment, at least to own. But yeah, we shouldn't have to worry about it. Like his day goes by so much faster now. I mean, we got an auto coder, we got a Grunig auto coder, so he doesn't have to worry about putting the scoop coder on, or coating his own screens anymore. And so we got an autocoder and an auto reclaim now, and he can rattle off a rack of 25 in a couple hours, both
Yeah.
wash and and coat. So yeah, he's pretty much out here helping in the shop half the day now instead
It's
of
really freed him
standing
up.
in front of him. Freed him up, yeah.
Does he
So
burning
yeah,
screens
it's
as well? Like, does he
yeah,
do
he
handles the whole screen area? So are you
yeah.
burning from film, or like how do you
Yeah,
burn? Yep.
yeah, that's the one thing. I did it kind of out of order. I think the first thing you probably should do is get a a direct to screen, a computer to screen. That
Yep.
would be ideal, I think. So because then
Yep.
you're not saving the films
Yep.
or reprinting the films all the time. But yeah,
So he, at the moment, just to get his workflow, he receives the film from your art department, and he takes
hmm
it from there through to the screen,
yeah,
um, being prepped or
yeah,
pre-press, like taping up and so on. Does he run
yep.
a thing where he'll, because I've seen these things and I often wonder whether, it's not a gimmick clearly, but whether people set it up just for the camera, but you've got a guy who will literally burn a screen, code a screen, reclaim a screen, kind of in a big cycle just on their own. You're not doing it
No,
quite like that
no,
yet.
no. It's the thing is like I don't have a drying rack
Right.
or a drying box to do that quick. I think a lot of people do that for film or for camera or
Right.
whatever,
Mhm.
but I think yeah, I mean, I basically so we have our films usually the day before printed, and we have a shelf in the screen room, which is basically just a room that's got the exposure unit in it and and dry screens,
Mm.
dry coated screens. And
Mhm.
then we have a separate room we call the wet room, which is just a little smaller kind of closet area that has um, it has 4 racks of screens in it and the auto coder, the Grunig.
Got
And
you.
so he'll put the clean screens from outside or out in the actual where our reclaim is, the washout booth and everything.
Mhm.
He'll take those screens, the whole as they're being washed or reclaimed, and he'll take them in there. And so he'll take them in the wet room, dehumidifier, fan, all that stuff on there to try to you know to dry them as quick as
Yeah.
possible. It probably takes about 4 hours to dry them that way.
Wow.
And then but so he'll always have a rack of clean at the end of the day, and he'll have a rack of coated screens.
Yep.
And then the next morning we'll take that rack of coated screens and take it into the reclaim or the
Exposure
exposure
room.
room,
Yep.
and then we'll organize them and take the empty rack out of there, stick it back into the room, and then he coats them,
Right.
switches them over, and it's just that cycle there. And so that's daily. So we'll go through a rack of screens or more a day. Um, and then, yeah, he'll end up now he uses the Impro to reclaim and wash out. And so his routine is more like, hey, come in, turn on the water, turn on the machine, get the conveyor belt running,
Mm.
go in, get the films, burn the screens,
Mm.
come out. And I was trying to get the workflow with him this morning about, hey, don't just burn one screen, come out, wash it out. You're just wasting steps, right?
Yep. Yep.
So burn two or three or four, then come out and start getting them in the machine, go back, so that you don't have to stand there and watch the machine do its thing.
Yeah. You
You
just keep
can
feeding it.
multitask.
Yeah.
So we start to multitask that job. And so all of a sudden he's no longer just in one area doing one thing.
Yeah.
He's in a little rotation doing a bunch of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And then he'll bring the films back over into where the art is. And yeah. And then, he's a smoker, so he'll go take a smoke break and then come back. But he just stays happy. And that's the key. If I can
Yeah.
keep him happy, then he basically, I just say you're running the entire screen room. So, and and then we have a shop assistant that does tapes the screens.
Right. But it
So
frees
he
up.
doesn't necessarily tape them.
Yeah. Gotcha. But it frees up that character to work on the press or work in other areas for the rest of the day. So it is
Yeah.
already
So
paying for itself. You
Yeah.
got an uplift in
Yeah.
production.
Well, and that's the other thing is so we have a girl that just does shipping and receiving, and she does purchasing. So she's our buyer. So, but she only does that for, I mean, shipping and receiving is probably a 2 hour job, right? Like it's just waiting for UPS to show up or FedEx or whatever,
Mm.
receive it all in, check it in. It might take her longer to check it in, depending on how much we got. And then she'll get the orders from the day before and purchase. So she'll have a timeline to do
Okay.
purchasing.
Yeah.
And then there's like this, basically by lunchtime, she's done.
Yeah.
So then
Wow.
she'll come into the actual shop and catch, pull, fold, stack, fold, count. She'll do one of those things.
Yeah.
And then Jason, my screen room guy, will do the same thing. So he just goes over, he loves talking to the guys at the machine. So he'll go over and just pull and put into the dryer. And so, yeah, it's kind of, I was talking to my wife this afternoon. I'm like, I feel like we have to hire one more guy, just to be a full-time shop person,
Yep.
because we have 3 printers, basically one person's bouncing around multiple dryers
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
stacking. Yeah. So, um, so it'd be nice if we had 2 people, but then, you got to justify that, right?
Yeah. And I
So,
guess it's set up for that in the sense that when the time comes, you just got to get that member of the personnel, member of the team
yeah,
to add to it rather than any more machinery. So just go back for a second to that, the person doing the dispatch. So she's
yeah,
doing the ordering, the stock ordering. She's
yeah,
receiving the stock. Is she
yeah,
picking the stock for orders as well?
yes, yeah. So
And then
yeah,
she's
that's basically her job. So what we did have is we had our sales girl, which used to be a printer of mine. She's been with us for 4 years, so she kind of knew the back end of the business. So we moved her up to the front end of the business. So she's inside sales. So she just takes orders and quotes from walk-ins
yeah,
or over the phone. She answers the phone. But she was getting so overwhelmed because she was also purchasing those items. Well, she'd start to purchase them, and then somebody walks in the door, somebody calls, she gets distracted, she starts
yeah,
making mistakes, right?
yeah,
So we said, well, we don't need a full-time person to do the ordering, and we don't need a full-time person to do shipping and receiving. It actually makes sense, the fact that if that person's ordering them, that they're also receiving them,
yeah,
to make sure what they ordered is actually
yeah.
came in correctly, and has that conversation. So that kind of worked out, right? That was and then she also checks them in and then she'll separate them for jobs. And she's got, we have Printavo, so she'll
Okay.
have her label maker back there, and she'll sit there and hit print on her label maker. And we do, we do our own boxing now. So we have our own custom boxes.
Mhm.
So she'll make up a box. She'll take the garments out of the old box, stick them in a new box, counted, separated, and put a label on there, and then comes and brings them out into the shop area where um, we got a series of shelves, that are, the printers know these are the ones to be printed, these are the
Yeah,
ones that are
yeah,
done, and yeah, we work it that way.
that's
So
cool.
yeah, multitasking. We're trying to keep a good flow. It's, and people are doing multiple jobs.
And that's cool. I mean, I guess the key thing there is to develop the business units. We're kind of at that stage, but not quite. It's beginning to kind of
Yeah.
form that. At the moment, the ordering's still done in the office, which is basically me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I do want to, I'm sort of, we're building a team so that we can have a lead production manager to relieve the production director, who's
Yeah.
one of my daughters, so that we can then give the purchasing of stock to her, so she can
Yeah.
take that role, I guess, but also in theory, manage the whole of production. But one of the
Yeah.
issues we have with purchasing stock is, you come to do the order and perhaps you've got one of those funky customers, right, who wants 20 different colors or something, which you
Yeah. Yeah.
just know there's going to be an issue when you come to ordering,
Yeah.
this product's not available in that color and so on, and you've got to go back to the customer and work out an
Yeah.
alternative. Is that something
So
that seems to be good when it's connected to the sales end? because there's a
Yeah.
relationship there. I'm just going to turn my heater on. Just give me one sec.
Yeah, not a problem.
Really easy to do. It's just I forgot to do it. Yeah. So
Hmm.
how does your purchaser cope with that? She go back to
So,
the customer
so
herself?
yeah, so we have her Michaela is her name. She talks with Haley, our sales girl, daily. So I mean they're literally right, I don't know, 20 feet away from each other really. They're just in separate rooms. But yeah, so Haley, we have pretty good flow for our business, like as far as like customers
Mm,
coming through. Um so yeah, we have about seven to 10 business days turnaround time. But basically what I say is as soon as the order comes in the door, um, we have to order them. Like as soon as we get money,
mm.
we take a down payment.
Okay.
So we'll take a 50% down payment. As soon as we get money, we're ordering. And so typically if I can close out, let's say our sales girl closes, or gets about converts about 7 jobs the day before. So
Mhm.
she knows we know at the end of the day what she's converted to sales, right? So that list is now sitting and purchasing for Michaela to come in the morning, and she has by noon to do it. So it's less than 24 hours from the moment of sale to we're ordering.
Mhm.
And so, and we've got a good supply chain right now, set up to where we can get garments in the next day. Um,
Yeah. You got a local
so
distributor, haven't you? I think I heard a
with
podcast.
Carolina made, yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
So are they in Charlotte? Is that where they are?
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, I can drive to them, and then AS Color, I can drive to them too.
Wow.
So
Okay.
AS Color just put a warehouse in Charlotte.
Yeah. Wow. So
They're going to be
that's,
on my podcast in a couple weeks. AS
oh,
Color is,
great. Great.
yeah,
They're probably, we supply all I guess, the mainstay garments and brands. I mean, there are a number of
yeah,
American brands that we can't get here.
okay,
And there are some other Australian brands that we have here that you probably won't have. But I'd
yeah,
say AS Color would be more than 90% of the stock that we print on. We
yeah,
absolutely love them. And they're
yeah,
very well recognized brand here. But to be able to get something next day or to drive, and if I was to drive to AS Color, it's 2.5 day drive, right?
oh
Like,
wow,
so
yeah, that's
that's
yeah,
not an
you don't want
option.
to do that.
No.
No, so yeah, it's and honestly, I mean, up until recently, the only warehouse was Los Angeles. So you know, that's a
It's a
4 hour
long.
time zone difference. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
probably a 3 day drive for me, right? 3 or 4 day drive. So, um, so no, it's a 4 day delivery from there. So it becomes super important for us to order right away. And Sanmar their port is in Jacksonville, so I can get Sanmar shirts, which is a huge distributor
Yeah. Yeah.
here in the States. So I can get them to turn around shirts in 24 hours. I can get them next day.
Okay.
If I place the order by 2 o'clock p.m., it'll be here the next morning at 9 a.m., 10 a.m. on the
We can
truck. So
we can do that with Gildan stock and American Apparel and
yeah,
Comfort Colors and all those
yeah,
brands that they own, um,
yeah,
if need be. But most of our customers aren't buying their stock, so it's
yeah,
not so
yeah,
useful to us.
yeah.
Um,
We try to upsell to AS Color, or there's a local brand called Soft Shirts here in Greenville that we try to upsell.
yeah,
Try to
right.
keep things local,
Yeah,
but
nice.
yeah, I love Wyatt from AS Color. I've met Glenn. I haven't met their main guy in charge, but I've met several of the other ones. Rick has been with them for a long time from the States here, but California guys. But yeah,
And they're fairly
got to
new in the US, aren't they? They've only been there a little
yeah,
while, but they seem
yeah,
to be making a big noise, which is great.
yeah, they are. Yeah. So yeah, so and so they talk. Michaela and Haley talk a lot, and like we try to order every single day. Now
Yep.
sometimes, it's most of the times we can get free shipping, from doing it that way.
Yep.
Um, but if we get in a pinch, like we got in a pinch the other day where some local police station needed shirts right away. Somebody didn't come through for them. Hey, can you get them by Thursday? It was like Tuesday. I knew that we weren't going to be there Friday.
Mm,
They,
mm,
my son went and got them at you know Wednesday morning, and they shorted us 60 larges or something,
right.
you know. And now I'm like, uh-oh, now last minute. So we had to call them again and was like, hey, we need these on a courier truck like ASAP. And they did it. Trig, who we interviewed on that podcast, you probably heard,
Yep.
um, is Trig Cherry. Yeah, he came through for us. But it's helpful, I guess, to partner with your local places and really get to know the people so that you know if you get in a pickle, you can call on them. And yeah,
Yeah, no, it's amazing. But just going back, so the dispatch lady whose name I've already forgotten, if there's a
Michaela.
Michaela, if there's a problem with stock availability, does she go back to the
She
customer or
she
would
goes
she?
she goes no, she just lets Haley handle it. So Haley's basically our point person. So yeah, we wouldn't have a second person call the customer.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to know that because
Yeah,
the relationship with the customer is always through sales, right? And
yeah,
to
it's
kind
always
of
through sales. Yeah,
disorient a customer by giving them another person. Okay, that's helpful to know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so going back to your order, I mean, I just love what I'm
yeah.
hearing
That's
already. I'm
cool. That's
so
all right.
excited.
Yeah,
But to go back to your auto reclaim and
yeah,
washout system, I didn't realize they did washout as well. So that's really cool.
yeah.
Um,
The Impro does both. Yeah, you basically turn a couple knobs, and
so
obviously you set the pressure.
yeah,
So
yeah, Jason, pay attention.
yeah, pay attention.
It was Jason,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it
Yeah.
was yeah, it's Jason. Good memory. Yeah.
Oh, got to learn stuff. Was there a lot of like obviously that needs a big water feed, but does that run on compressed air, fully electric? Like,
Actually, yeah, what's crazy is that there's no air. And honestly, I was very concerned with, um, like the hookups because we got it from a local distributor, Blue Ridge Screen Products, and Aaron's Aaron's very knowledgeable, but he's like, "Hey, I'm getting this from, overseas. They
mm,
say it's plug and play." And so we had to go to Corchem, which is the distributor here, and kind of get their opinion on it. And they were like, well, you need a garden hose hookup. And I'm like, well, I got that. That's easy.
mm,
I can do a
mm,
garden hose. But well, you need two of them because you need to. Uh, I'm a mechanical engineer. I used to be in engineering for 22 years. So you basically have like a check valve system. So you've got to overcome the check valve in order to have that flow right. So one's just kind of a redundant hose line that doesn't really feed the system. It just feeds the check valve. And then the
okay.
other one feeds the system. And so yeah. And so I was like, well, all right, cool. It doesn't take much water, but how much does it drain? You know, and that was the concern,
Mm,
getting the drain. Where's it going to drain back to?
mm,
We have a filter system underneath our washout unit that we use. And so I was like, I'll just drain back into the filter system and pump it out. But that filter system, you know, we just really, it was an unknown how fast that was going to exit out of the
yeah,
machine. And really, it's only 240-volt electric, which I don't know what that is in
that's the
European
same.
standards, but
Yeah,
yeah. So three phase 240, 220, whatever it is. And that was like that, that was easy. That's easy to run for the electrical. So we had the electrical there, we had the water there. We ran the machine. The sales guy came out from Corchem, or the installer came from Corchem. He's also in sales, Barry. He came and walked us through the system, and and it was great. And we started running screens through, and then all of a sudden the filter system overflowed and
Backed up.
flooded everything. So we had to go, uh-oh, back to the drawing board. But it was just really just that's where I said we need a workflow. We need to multitask, and so don't just sit there and burn 20 screens and try to do them all one time. Let's let that filter system kind of raise up, lower down. And so yeah, so no air, no required, standard electrical, and just a garden hose. But just I split it. I just took a standard garden hose and split it into
I
two.
wondered how you done it. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then yeah, and it works like a charm. Yeah.
How did you
I have to
resolve
get
the overflow issue you had
a
through your
pump.
filter?
Yeah, I have to get a bigger pump. I haven't gotten one yet. So
Oh, to exit. Yeah.
he's only allowed to do 3 reclaim screens at a time.
Yeah.
Like and then take a break and untape screens or something
Gotcha.
for a couple of minutes so that it drains down, and then go back to reclaim, do 3 more, then untape, 3 more, then untape, which is fine. It doesn't take long for it to drain.
Yeah.
But it has to have a receptacle to go into,
Yeah, gotcha. To
um,
catch it and to actually
to
start
catch it.
filtering.
Yeah.
You
So
just need a bigger bore pump or a pump to exit it into
yeah,
does it go into the sewage system?
yeah, it does. But it goes through the filter system.
Yep.
And I've actually had the local water place in twice now, testing my water to make sure that I wasn't dumping chemicals into the.
Yeah.
And you're not. It's basically colored water at that point. It's parts per billionth in chemical to water ratio or something. So it's they checked the pH on it, and they were like, there's worse drinking water than this. So it's so
So, did you build that yourself, the filtration system, or is that
no, it's CCI.
CCI? Okay.
CCI, chemical consultant, something or other. Yeah, they're out of Canada. I got it through maybe Action Engineering or something
Yep.
local,
Yep.
to try to. I bought the washout booth and the filter system together.
As a single kind of unit or two
Yeah,
units that go
I
together.
mean, it's 2 units. You just you combine them together.
Yeah.
But it was, when I first got started, I had made my own.
Yeah. I know
I
that
did.
experience.
Yeah. So, and then you start to get going, and I'm like, all right, well, what do we need to improve? Definitely the washout booth. It's leaking all over everything.
Yeah.
So we just went out and bought one.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, I mean, I want to hear your story in a second about how you got going, but so many people, and like us, start building stuff yourself. I mean, you're obviously an engineer, so you're a whole heap better at that than someone that studied philosophy.
Is that what
But
you
there is
studied?
that thing, that question that comes up, right? Okay, this is working kind of well. It's leaking. Let's say if it's a water-based thing, but we
Yeah.
really need to make the jump now and actually buy a professional thing. And I think that's where everything starts to change, from the flash end of things to the oven, ultimately to a press, but everything in between, like washing out. And I can only dream of things like auto reclaimers. I mean, that's and that,
Uh,
we've got a
yeah, it's one of those
scenario.
things where
Go ahead.
like you said, I said that too. I can only dream about it, but you can if you want to grow, if you want to, like if you want to free up other people's time and have time to do other things, like you almost have to just do it in
Mm,
order for those
mm,
other things to happen. So
mm.
yeah, I know that I hear people talk themselves out of it all the time, and I'm like, I talk myself out of it all the time. I wouldn't go back,
Yeah,
you
right.
know. So, but go ahead. I'm sorry, I
As
didn't mean to
yeah,
cut you off.
that's no good. In that kind of division, if you will, of our little business, we it's still kind of separate in the sense that one person does the burning a screen. So they take the artwork to press, take the screen to press, if you will.
Mhm.
So they do everything in there. And reclamation's a separate unit, usually with two guys untaping,
Yeah.
removing the ink, dip tanking, and then
Yeah.
obviously blowing out for us, and then drying. Exact same kind of model that you're describing. Our drying sounded a lot quicker than yours, which is interesting. Be good to find out why. And then recoding, which we're still doing manually. And there's one guy that recoats apart from myself, and I don't do that anymore. But if he's not there, I can do it. So
Yeah.
an auto recoder sounds good too.
Oh,
Um,
oh my gosh. It's cheap. I mean, honestly, for what you're paying for the try to brighten my light here. What you're paying for the reclaim is 3 times as much as the coder. The coder is like 15 grand,
yeah,
like $15,000. It's not, it's compared to training somebody to scoop, which is
yeah,
me.
yeah,
That's me
right.
right now. Right. And so like I'll have to train somebody and they're terrible at it. And because I was terrible at it for forever, right? And so you know, if I can free myself up from that, what's crazy is that auto coder is so perfect that my entire process has gotten better because the screens are they're coated evenly
Exactly.
and
You've got consistency.
perfectly.
Yeah,
The EOM and all that is perfect, you know.
yeah, yeah.
You actually use less emulsion.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's because everything is precise, you know.
And you just on
So
that, your coder is that so that's got the coder on both sides. How many
yep.
does it do at once? Does it do one or two screens?
So it does one, and I had considered doing two, but literally it doesn't take but a minute to do one screen. So
Yeah, okay.
I
That's fine.
mean, I didn't see it necessary. Like maybe if I was doing 60 screens a day, I'd get two, but you know,
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
not yet. But yeah, it's cheap. Cheap. Anatol has one. Um, Grunig has one. Yeah, there's I'm sure all of them do, but
Yeah.
those are the two popular ones that here.
And
Uh,
so with our
Lotus
scenario,
Holland.
we'll have two guys that reclaim who I guess buddy up. They don't, and we use other staff to take the ink out because it's like we've all been there, we've all grown perhaps in that way, I guess. And oh, you're on cleaning screens today. Oh, really?
Yeah,
And recently, I mean, I shout
yeah,
out to one of our guys, Sina, who's been with us a good while. Sina muscles, really, he does a bit of everything. He can
yeah,
run a press as well. But he's the coder. And so recently I said to him, we're really thinking of building the whole screen area just as a business unit there that you could take on, and you could manage. And, he does that at the drying end and the recoding end. And he just
yeah,
marks it up on the whiteboard. This is how many are in and dried and uncoated, by screen mesh count. And these are the ones that are coded and so on. So we can always look at it. We'll do 30 screens a day, sometimes
yeah,
50 for a lot of color
yeah.
work, sometimes 20, sometimes a bit less, maybe.
Sure.
So I said to him, hey, how do you feel about taking this on? You can have a whole area to yourself. And
Yeah.
honestly, I thought he was going to walk out, like, no, don't I don't want to do that. That's horrible. But yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the
Well, Jason was the same way. You know, like he was just a shop guy. He was just doing, pulling, loading, stacking. He wasn't even loading. He was just pulling and stacking and counting. But he was also a talker. He talked, and there was another guy that was doing our reclaim, and he unfortunately was he was a yeah he had some personal issues and couldn't make it to work and has since passed away.
oh,
So it's really sad, that his life went down the drain that quick. So unfortunately, everybody kind of saw the writing on the wall with him, that he was just living a bad lifestyle. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And and so yeah, so we had to let him go. And so in the process of, like, I was like, hey, I gotta replace this guy. And nobody wants to reclaim, just like your guy, right? Nobody wants to do it. But I said, hey, listen, when I challenge, like, you stepped in when he left, and I told you I was going to hire somebody else. So all you had to do was do this for a little bit, and then, but I need you to do it the best you can ever do it. And he would just knock it out of the park every day.
Yeah.
And he just enjoyed the challenge. And I was like, listen, you love the challenge. It seems like you really love the challenge. So I'm gonna do another challenge with you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna challenge you to run the screen room, the entire screen room. So reclaim, coating, all of that, burning, or exposing, um, all of it. I want you to be the manager of that department.
Yeah.
And because I'm calling you that manager, I'm gonna give you a raise on top of
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
so, like, and I go, and then also I'm gonna get you an auto coder and an auto reclaim. So I'm gonna get you machines to do it for you.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm in, you
Yeah.
know.
Right. Okay. How
And
long did
so,
it
like,
take to get
it took
from the manual?
it's
Pro-
what what's actually cool is the Grunig, the auto coder, was in stock in the States. I got that in 14 days, less than 14 days. So that didn't take long at all, and that's so easy. I mean, literally, you just stick the screen in, pull the lever down, and push start, and
Yeah.
it does it. And then he just takes the screen out, sticks it in the rack, sticks another screen in, pushes start. That's it.
Yeah. That's
And
nice. So
and then,
does he have to clean the ink out first, or is that like obviously he
oh
has to
well,
take
no. So
the residue
yeah.
out?
I mean, when the thing comes, when the screens are, that's completely clean screens.
Yeah.
I'm saying coder, the auto coder, the
Yeah.
auto
Oh,
reclaim.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. My bad.
he's got
Yeah.
to take the screens, take the tape off. If there's any ink left over, usually our printers will clean the ink out of the
Sure.
screens when they're
Yeah.
done. Put it back in the bucket. So usually he's just taking tape off, and then he has cleanup cards there, so he'll scrape any big chunks off that are left over, throw it in the garbage, and then sticks them in the dip tank. And
Okay.
the dip tank has the chemical on it to kind of start the process. And then we stick that dip tank, that actual screen from the dip tank, now into the auto reclaim, and
Yep.
then that just does all the rest.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So and then, yeah, so it's literally only, the auto reclaim is only water. It's no, we're not running, like,
Any chemical in there?
easy way through there or anything.
Yeah. Is that
So
what you use in your dip tank? Easy way.
I use core chem products. So like the BIOS, whatever it is, there's different products for each thing, but I think there's
Yeah.
Bio 7, Bio 4, whatever, CP something.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the CP is the one, I think, for the dip tank, which is, it basically is Easy Way 704,
Yeah.
which is their part, the really good stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so, and that only takes, he'll stick 3 screens in at a time into the dip tank, because it's a pretty big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but yeah, so he does that too. So again, that's just, he does that, all of that, but he's doesn't do it all the time. And he's very mobile, so he's not doing one thing all the time, like, so he's kind of stimulated to stay busy.
Yeah.
And that's key. I mean, so I don't know if you can tell, I mean, I've got white floors, white walls.
Yeah.
um
You're embarrassing.
um
Yeah. It is. Looks like a
yeah,
showroom.
yeah, well, it's on purpose. So, like, my goal as a business owner is to get employees excited about working here.
Yeah.
And so, like, I try to create that atmosphere where, like, yeah, I'm going to pay you, we're going to have fun, but we still got to get the work done.
Yeah.
You know, um, we're going to have the cleanest shop in the industry. We still got to get the work done, and you're
Yeah.
going to have to clean it. So do you feel pride? And I want you to feel prideful in where you work and what you do in the environment. um, I'm trying to build a culture of,
Mm, mm.
excitement, and we bring people in on tours. So we use it as a showroom. We bring
Yeah. Right.
um, tours. So we had Anatol's open house here
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
in February. So, we got free marketing from them, and ended up, I had 97 people show up from all around the country, and actually
Mhm.
from other countries. I had a guy from Japan. I had
Wow.
yeah, I had Nobi from Japan. I had some people from Texas, some people from all over the East Coast. People drove from Mississippi, Tennessee,
Yeah. Wow.
to come see the shop, and I've yeah, the white floor has helped, right? But yeah, Anatol actually nicknamed me. You can see the banner in the background over there, the
Yeah.
print lab. So they said it's like a laboratory instead of a print
A
shop,
print shop.
So so
Oh,
but
it's
but but it's you do that kind of thing to try to, raise the morale. We have dogs here, so the
nice.
customers love the dogs, the employees love the dogs.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where we're trying to make it a cool environment. And
I think that's really key because, I mean, at the end of the day, particularly obviously when it's warm, it is a sweatshop, not in the pejorative sense. We're
no,
the
but it
ones that
is.
are
Yeah,
making it happen, and it's hot and it's tiring and it's repetitive, and it can
yeah,
be bad on the back and the arms and whatever.
yeah,
So to make it an interesting, fun place to work, we have a motto, and it's simply: a clean shop is a clean shirt. That doesn't always
yeah,
work, of course. But
yeah.
I have seen your Instagram channel and looked at it and
Okay.
gone, "What? You've got that really nice enameled floor, which is better than
Yeah,
concrete." Is this your own
yeah.
shop, or do you lease the shop or rent the shop? I
I
mean,
lease it. I lease it. I probably should buy one. That's probably our next step, is buying something.
yeah,
Because we just kind of, we went, we grew quickly. And in fact, the Anatol thing really grew us even more. So I'd highly recommend it. If you ever get the opportunity there in Australia to have something at your shop, just do it, because it's insane. Like the marketing side of things, how that, you know, puts you out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're in conversation with them at the moment with Juan,
Yeah.
and we think
Yeah.
it was planned. We're planning an open house here, but we're a little bit out the way, and Australia
Yeah.
is huge. I don't know if it's quite as big, in terms of square miles as the US. It's probably not far off, but there's next to
Yeah.
nobody here in comparison. So we've got
Yeah.
an airport, we have regular commercial flights, but it's
Yeah.
a small town to fly into. So I think the plan with that is actually to move it to a bigger, in fact, to the reseller for Anatol in Sydney,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is an hour's flight. So pretty excited
Would
about
you
that.
go there? Would you
Oh
go
yeah,
there
yeah,
and print?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll get
Yeah,
down and
that's the key. Juan's great. I love Juan.
yeah,
Yeah,
likewise. He's
he
fantastic.
actually flew from Colombia to come to our
I bet.
um
Yeah.
yeah,
He's down to come here.
yeah,
He's keen for
yeah.
that. So no, I've got a lot of
Well,
time for Juan. He's fantastic.
yeah, he's the language barrier. Sometimes he'll he won't get my jokes, but he's
Yeah.
but he's
I won't
great.
get him either, Jeremy.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to ground zero for you.
Sure.
You mentioned you're a mechanical engineer, I think it was.
Yep.
How did you end up in screen printing? How did this happen?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was so, you went to school for engineering. My wife was a nurse. Raising a family, had good salary, good, good vacation, 4 weeks vacation or whatever, and just had it kind of where had it made a little bit, like, but I was not happy.
Yeah,
And I was coaching football, American football, and I was like, you know what? I had so much fun coaching football. Maybe I'll try to get into coaching, or maybe I'll write a coaching book, or maybe I'll I was just trying to find something
Can I
different.
stop
So
you there?
like,
Because I know, because I've got a history on this from you a
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
Tell me about that coaching story, because it was the Carolina Crusaders, wasn't it?
yes, sir. Yeah, yeah.
'Cause-
So my son played for him, right? And so I was just the dad with the camera.
yeah.
I just wanted to take pictures. I'll go to practice. I never coached football before, and so just so happened they were like, "Well, we need some help. Can you at least stand on the sideline?" I said, "Why don't like I love watching football. I could tell you all the things, but I've never coached it with kids. I've coached other sports with kids, not football. So, and they're like, well, great, but you can look for certain things for us. Yes, I can do that. So I started helping the head coach, and what I ended up being more of was a controller for like basically saying, hey, don't lose your temper to the head
Yeah.
coach, and I would pull him away from losing his temper with the referees or something, like,
Yeah.
and
Right.
I would tell him, but he was just like one of these high strung guys that like he would just get so upset. And I was like, I was just calm, I was always calm. And so like the guy was like, he's like, at the end of the season, I'm done. The team is yours if you want it. And this was the junior varsity team. And my son played and they had 0 wins. So like they never won a game. They didn't even get close to winning a game. Right.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so it was my kid, and I was like, I went to the head coach who was on the varsity team and I said, hey, he's leaving. He said the team is mine if I want it. I know you guys need a coach. I've never done this. If I'm going to do it, you need to teach me how to do it. Like we need to work together. So we ended up meeting in the off season, and he basically ran me through the entire offense and defense. And he goes, you're just going to have a bunch of dads. We don't have the money to hire coaches or anything. So it was just a bunch of dads. It was little league, little small kids,
Yep.
not small kids. It was like middle school here. It's like 13-year-olds, 12, 13, 14-year olds. And so I said, all right, cool. Um, so I did it. And so we started off the first of the year, and I had never coached a game in my life. And we get to the first game, and I'm just running the plays that they had last year, and I'm just picking them off of a sheet of paper. I'm like, let's go this way with this one. Let's go this way with this one. Let's try throwing the ball. Let's do this. Well, we ended up going into overtime and won the game in overtime.
Wow.
In fact, the very first play from scrimmage, I ran a play and my running back took off and scored a touchdown on the very first play. And I turned to my one of the dads and I go, hey, that was easy. I was just joking around, right? And well, anyways, we ended up going undefeated all the way till we went 9 games. We won 9 games in a row.
Wow.
We'd never won a game the year before. Won 9 games in a row with the same exact offense and everything. Just more players. We had more players and a different attitude.
Mm,
So the motivation was different,
interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And so that culture is what oh, hey, it wasn't necessarily the talent. It wasn't necessarily the system. It was the culture.
Yeah.
The culture, the team culture changed. They actually enjoyed them. So they had fun. And so we ended up taking that and we lost one game. We lost it on the final play of the game. The guy ran back a kickoff, ran it right back to right, all the way in for a touchdown. So we lost that game. But then we went into the playoffs and won the championship. So we were 14-1 with the first championship ever for that team in the first season I've ever coached football. So I was like, hey, this is fun. I think I'm pretty good at it. And we ended up going to I coached 7 more years, so I coached 8 years total. Went to 3 or 4 championships, and
Wow. That's
yeah,
amazing.
so
What a turnaround.
I lived, so it was that was fun, and I was into it, And the culture side, I ended up going in and running little clinics on culture for the other teams,
Hmm.
like, and just their head coaches and saying, hey, culture defeats strategy. It doesn't matter how good your players are. It doesn't matter if you can get their mindset right. They'll lay down in traffic for you. You'll you can
Yeah.
accomplish anything, right? Um, and so that's the way I approach business too, right? So yeah, so I was thinking I was going to coach. And then my son said, "Hey, I want to do this clothing line." And I was like, "All right, I can do the clothing line. I can help you. I know a bunch of screen printers from the football team. You know, the football team bought shirts all the time."
Yeah,
And I
right.
had a little bit of an art background. I love doing art. So I taught myself Adobe Illustrator. I did video. So I did graphics. I did After Effects, and then, use the Adobe products for that. So I
Mhm.
kind of learned Photoshop and Illustrator along the way. And he goes, "You know what? I can't make any money if I have a printer because they take all the money,
Mhm.
and I have to sell the shirts for way more, and I don't think I can sell them for that much." So I was like, "Well, I'm an engineer. We can figure this out. Let's build a press."
I
So
knew it.
we built the press. Yeah, we scrap lumber. We built the press, and I designed some of it. I got the plans off of Pinterest. I tried to improve them. Bought a Lazy Susan off of Amazon.
Yep.
Put together the press and I made a 4-color press in my garage with scrap lumber in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And
Did it hold registration out of interest?
no,
No.
no,
Well, that's the same as
and
most
no,
four-color presses.
yeah, it was
Small
yeah,
ones.
and I made my own screens because didn't do I didn't do a lot of research. So
Right.
all I learned was like DIY everything, right? So we printed shirts on that thing for about a good solid month. Dried the shirts in my wife's oven. I guess it's in my oven too, but she was like, you gotta figure out how to do this differently. This is terrible. And so I went and took a class. I took a day off of work and went and took a class at a local screen print supplier, and came home with $7,000 startup system for right, because they sold me on it, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
it. Sales this morning. Yeah.
I had a 4-color Vastex with a little D100 mini dryer and
Yeah.
a flash, and I bought the exposure unit. It was like an E100 exposure unit. It was like a full kit, right? And we set that thing up in a spare bedroom, and it was just, my kid was like freaking out because he's like,
But
"I gave you like I can give you $500. That's it. Like, you spent 7,000." I'm like, "Well, you pay it back. We'll print some shirts for some people." And we started printing shirts, and our third or fourth order was, had a guy from church say, "Hey, can you print um, shirts for Founders, which is a local federal credit union here, and which is a bank?" And I said, "Sure. How many?" And he said, "Anywhere from 3 to 6,000."
okay.
And I'm like, "What's it for?" And he goes, "Well, we got the naming rights to a baseball stadium locally, and we want to give opening day shirt giveaway." So it was the University of South Carolina, which is a major, baseball team.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fourth order, I'm like, I can do it, and so manual, right? So literally, I got the job. It was a 30, no, it was back then. I think it was like ended up being like a $19,000 job or something.
Yeah.
And I went and found a local printer and contracted to him. So
Nice.
the local printer printed the shirts for me, and I
Yeah.
still walked away with a $9,000 profit,
Yeah.
and I paid off my equipment in the fourth job.
Yeah.
So then I was like, this, like,
This is an
what do I
interesting
want to sit
business.
do I want to sit at my desk and just twiddle my thumbs and wait for, because engineering cyclical, it's up and down. It's just like
Okay.
screen print. The business is, people spend money, they don't spend money. And I was in the packaging industry, so I was basically wrapping candy bars. I was making the machines that wrapped candy bars. So flow wrappers and stacker, or product pickers and boxing units and packaging units. So yeah. So we ended up doing the screen printing thing as a side hustle for 6 months. And I would work, and then I'd get home and we'd print till midnight, and then I'd do it all again the next day. And I said, finally, I told my wife, I'm like, "I'm going to quit my job and do this full time." She's like, "You're nuts," you know? And she's like, you cannot let the little business bank account get below $5,000. It's our running joke, right? She's like, you can't let that bank get below $5,000. She's a, that cushion at least gets us, rent and utilities for maybe a month and a half, so that you can find a real job again. So what's the worst that can happen? I'll just go be an engineer again. You know, and and then the funny thing was, is she's like, we'll order once a week, and it'll be every Monday, and we'll try to save and blah. And I was like, all right, cool. And after I paid off the equipment and everything, like, that money came in, and I was able to use it to build the business a little bit more. And we started just getting a good reputation. And I moved out of the house 3 months later into my first unit, 500 square feet. I only lasted 3 months in that before I had to double
Wow.
to 1,000 square feet. I struggled in 1,000 square feet. I stayed in it because of COVID hit, but I
Okay.
was growing. So COVID hit and I stayed in it, but I was wanting to get out of it because I was just like, it was too small. Because
Mhm.
I bought the Anatol at that point, the auto.
Wow. Hang on a sec. Whoa. So let me get this timing right, because you said earlier you grew fast. It
Yeah,
sounds extremely fast. When are we
yeah.
when did your son start his clothing line?
Clothing line. His clothing line was in 2016.
Okay.
By 2017, I was moved out and had a um, screen printing local screen printing company, basically, Rockhill
Running
Screen
on the
Printing.
Vastex kit.
Running on the Vastex kit. I was doing water based.
Oh, right.
Try to be different, right? And and then yeah. So the word of mouth grew really quick, and I kept on getting the same founder's job every year. So that was nice. So I knew that I would have like a nice little chunk, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I grew in literally in 1 year. So if I go from March 2017 is when I had my LLC. And so the following March, I had already been in 3 locations. So I was on my third location. Um,
And you
just
got
trying
an
to
automatic press at
grow.
that point
I
when you
got the
went to the
automatic press immediately in 2018. I got the first auto.
wow.
And the girl, I ended up hiring a girl, to Haley, which is now my sales girl. Um, I eventually hired her to help me. And then my wife was still being a nurse. So we got to the point where she would come in and work a few days a week, and we got embroidery and started doing other stuff, and so yeah, it took when by the time COVID hit, well, that was 2020. So that's 3 years.
Yeah.
I was probably 3 years. I was probably doing, yeah, I don't know. I was doing pretty well. I was basically I'm not bragging. This is just how it just happened. We
Sure.
just happened to be in a good area. We literally doubled the business every year, um, from the previous year, right? It just seemed like that was the trend. Then COVID hit, and obviously everything fell off. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
Simon Sinek says, adapt or die,
Yep.
and so I adapted, and I went to 100% online stores for COVID, and
Yep.
I pushed it as a fundraiser
Yep.
for local businesses. So buy a shirt from your local business to keep them afloat. And I basically did a swap, a 10 for 10. Basically, you pay $10, $20, $10 goes to them, $10 goes to me. You get a shirt, you know.
Yeah. Right. Nice.
And so I would just keep my employees employed while I did that. Ended up doing 3 rounds of that, and ended up getting interviewed by Order My Gear for their magazine or something, for their blog or something, about the success of that.
Mm.
And so that success actually carried me through like the 3 hard months of COVID. And then it just, like, all of a sudden the floodgates opened back up again. And the only problem we had was sourcing the materials.
Mm.
And we did a charity shirt, and we ended up getting a contract from a local big church organization, global church organization, Samaritan's Purse.
Oh yeah, no
Um,
Samaritan's Purse. Yeah.
so yeah, so we started doing some stuff for them, which grew us even more. And I had to move, and so we moved into 1,700 square feet, which is where we're at now.
Yeah.
And that was just one unit. And my neighbors ended up moving out, and that freed up another 4,000 square foot. So now I've got about 5,700 square foot.
Holy
And
moly.
so I bought a second auto
And
to try to,
Anatol again.
so I've got two Anatol. I've got a 14, 12, 14 station, 12 color Anatol auto. The new one, that's where they had the show. They kind of showcased that. And then I've got the 7/8,
Yep.
smaller Anatol.
Yep.
And then I've got an Anatol Thunder
Manual.
manual.
Yep.
And I sold the Vastex to a
Yep.
local printer. And
Yep.
but I have some Vastex dryers still.
So you're
Um,
using the infrared dryers with Vastex.
yep. Yeah.
We've got one
I'm
of those
thinking, I'm
now.
considering getting gas.
Okay.
Um,
Is that
that
just
seems to
because
be
of
the natural
price?
progression. Yeah, I'm running all electric. I have a full electrical shop, right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Um, so it's not bad on. I'm not complaining because it's actually really efficient. I'm not paying a terrible electrical bill, but I think that a conveyor dryer for the I think that a gas conveyor dryer is more efficient, and I would
Right.
love to get one with split belts.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I know those ones. The super
yeah,
long ones as well. Are you
yeah.
still printing with water base? You must be printing plastisol now.
On Plastisol. Yeah, I moved to Plastisol when I moved that second time. Uh, it's just water based was hard to do on
Yeah.
an auto.
Yeah.
It's just by the time you got setups and everything, but now they've got the registration systems. I mean, you can dial it in pretty good. So I can. We're actually going to water based camp at Made Labs in July to
Yep.
kind of to try to see um, how to get back into it from the experts because there's definitely benefit in having discharge at least, you know.
Mm. Mm.
But the chemicals are completely different now. I mean,
Mm.
literally in 3 years, it's different. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, are
so
you meaning plastisols are heat better, or that the chemicals are changed in water base so they don't dry
the
out?
water-based chemicals so usually the problem I had with water-based was that you would where it's so warm here, right? It's the South, so and the humidity is not that great, and it was always fluctuating.
Mm.
So it was just like, I get the ink in the screen, and by the time I get to the fourth color to register it, the first color would be completely dry,
Right in the mesh. Yeah.
in the mesh. So now they have the Anatol's got the registration system so that I can pre-register, get them on press, basically get them dialed into where it's almost perfect, with just the jig, and
Yeah.
then go back and put the ink in there, do a test print, and just do some small micros, and then I'm rolling, you
Yeah.
know,
Okay.
because once you get going, you can't stop.
Yeah.
And with the
Water
water
base.
base. So
Yeah. Do you find you
so
get a
that's
lot?
why I kind of shied away from it.
Do you find you get a lot of customers differentiate? Like, we'd want this. Do they ask for a water based print? Are they not too
No,
worried?
it's an
Yeah.
upsell. No,
Yeah.
they don't
Okay.
know. Customers really don't know unless you
So,
educate them.
sure. So you'd actually
Yeah.
use that as an upsell. Would you like to
Yeah.
go to water base? It's much smoother, or
Yeah,
but it's going to
have the
cost a
have the
bit
sales
extra.
girl show them. Yeah, have them show them the hand. Same with the AS color.
Yeah.
Here's,
Right.
in the soft shirts, I'll just hand them the shirt and say, here, here's what your wife's gonna want to wear to bed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then so they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. She likes comfortable shirts wearing to bed. I'm like, now imagine, she's wearing that shirt and she doesn't care what logo's on it. Why
Yeah.
is she wearing it? And she goes, was because it's so comfortable. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
don't you want that shirt to be like, so that if your logo's on it, they're gonna wear it anyways,
Yeah.
so then they're like, wow, that's smart marketing, and it's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And we find that, I mean, the upsell, like I said, 90+% of what we do is one of my colleagues coming in.
That's right.
That's okay. Would be AS Color. So we don't
Yeah.
generally need to upsell. This is my daughter coming in. She's my business partner here. Don't know if you want to say hello. Generally quite shy. This is
Hello.
Lydia. This is Jeremy.
Hi.
Hello, Lydia. How are you?
Charlotte.
Good.
Yeah. So
Good.
get
Your
to work.
family business.
We're a family business. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
the
so
boss.
am I. My son works for me. So still same guy.
We're going to trade stories as parents, you know, how to get it working.
Nice meeting you.
So where were we? Yeah, so Ace Color isn't an upsell
The
for
upsell.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get that entirely when someone comes in here, particularly on hoodies. I mean, the staple tee, classic tee, you know, I don't know people like Bella Canvas and some of the brands you'd be working with there, but for us, they're just so far ahead in terms of the quality of garment, the
Yeah.
finish, the print on a staple tee is just gold.
Yeah.
But also people want to know about hoodies, you know, what hoodie should we go for? Well, that's pretty easy sell, you know. You got one over here, it's 50/50 poly cotton. You got one over here, it's 20/80. You know, it's going to be warmer, it doesn't pill, and so on.
Yeah.
So we're definitely upselling that, but that's
Do you have
interesting.
walk-ins? Do you have like people coming
Not
in that you
not
showroom it
really.
or
We do. I
okay.
mean, we're national, so our business was built,
Okay.
interestingly, around church connections
Yeah.
and that church market, which I'd say we still do 40% of our businesses with that market. But that became national really quickly for us because we're in a real small town. There's only 26,000 people here. There's the University of New England. We're in a region known as New England. So the University of New England here. So we do get a bit of business from them, but we did zero advertising locally. It's
Yeah.
picking up that there were two other screen printers around, both of which have pretty much gone. One of them sold out to another company that's struggling to, it seems, to really get going. And we're trying to help them a bit. So we picked up all their business basically. But
Yeah.
prior to that, we've had a very quick growth as well. Doesn't sound as quite as dynamic as yours.
Yeah.
But we're
Well,
national.
and
So we
yeah,
don't get
and
a lot of walk-ins.
you
So,
said it's the church business side of things that helps considerably. I mean, because the mindset, you know, let's help each other. That's, you
yeah,
know, relationships are the most important thing anyway. So,
yeah,
so yeah, that tends to be, that's your sales force, you know, it's that
yeah,
word of mouth, right? Yeah.
correct. And you know, pastors move from church to church, and youth pastors move, and they get
Mhm.
recommendations, and we just love serving that
Yeah.
market. You know, that's
Yeah.
we serve the
But
church.
obviously ministry shirts, right? Is that
Yeah.
maybe?
It's a kind of for us, it's a funny one because we're print custom shirts, we're print my t-shirts, we're ministry shirts, and with the ministry of shirts. The last one tends to be the general tag, and that's run
That's
as one
cool.
company. Yeah, so we had a multi-branded strategy initially, which was really stupid. Yeah, so the churches get that concept of ministry shirts,
Right.
but I think the ministry of shirts is understood, hopefully, in the other markets.
No,
Um,
makes
but
sense.
yeah, like all businesses, we want to be known for customer care, really. Um,
Yeah.
we started with water base. I mean, look, I won't go into our story, but you know, it's for another time, really. Uh we started by accident in a way, but I knew nothing, zero, absolute zero.
Yeah.
And there are no
Yeah.
places you can go to here and train, not that I'm aware of. And so I didn't even know there was a thing called plaster. So I just thought there was all this water-based stuff. And man, a
Right. You
little bit
skee
like
ball,
you.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
And the
little
online
bit
stuff.
like you, we live in a place that's very arid. And I think I had my first color job, which is a two-color job without an underbase. It, you know, the colors weren't even close to each other. There was perfect separation between them. I just couldn't get it. And I went to
Yeah.
bed that night and said to my wife, look, this is a really bad idea. I think I'll find another hobby, And the next morning I just persevered and eventually we got there. But when we moved to Plastisol, I then started to hear about Plastisol and thought, yeah, it sounds really tricky, I don't, much more sophisticated. And eventually we thought, oh, we'll just give that a go. And we were like, whoa, why didn't we start with this stuff? This is gold.
Yeah.
So we tend not to
Yeah.
try and upsell or drive customers. Occasionally we'll have one that says, oh, I want water-based for ecological reasons, and we try and steer clear of it. But you'll do it as well. You'll do both, but you prefer Plastisol.
Yeah. The only reason we would do water-based anything right now is like, so we had an automotive shop said that the prints were they were so thick that the shop guys were sweating, and they were forced by their company to use that logo, and it was a massive logo, and I was like, like, how can we get around it being so heavy? It's like a stop sign on the back of the shirt, almost like, so there's just this big sweat patch on the back of them, it's just constantly sweating. So working in automotive, so I said, well, we could discharge it, and so we would discharge them, and we discharged the entire design, and they absolutely loved it. So that would be a repeat customer.
Yeah.
That automotive. So we did the discharge side of things there, but like when I first got into water base, it was just because like everybody in my area was Plastisol. I was just trying to be different, so it really wasn't, I was just like finding your niche, and so, but I quickly got away from that once, you start to do business and you're like struggling. I'm like, well, let's go to Plastisol and not struggle,
Yeah.
So that's what we did. But now getting back into like the business side of things now, like a lot of the people I've met in the industry are all back on water base again. And I'm like, okay, there's something to that. Let's do some research and see if that's for us. And so like, I saw the water based camp last year. I didn't go to it. I went to the print hustlers instead, learned a lot from that. And I'm like, well, I'll just go to the water based camp and learn some, I'm sure I'll walk away with knowledge and and hopefully maybe get back into it. I still have all the stuff. I've got Matsui water based stuff. So I still have it's probably got a terrible shelf life. So it's probably no good, but
But you got the mixing system as well.
I got the mixing system and everything. Yeah, so it's just, yeah. I'm in the Monarch now, the Plastisol company. Yeah. Those guys are, so that's a local company to us too, in Charlotte, right out of Charlotte. But
right?
They spent 15 years. They were the digital printing side of things. So they made ink for digital, like the direct to garment and all that, those printers and the large format digital printers. They spent 15 years or something like that trying to develop the best Plastisol ink.
Wow.
And so it's really good. Like, and so like you'll see Dylan from Shirt Show uses it. He's really into it. It's like AS Color. It's almost kind of growing its own little cult following here.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just so happened to be local to me. And so I was like, I need to meet these guys. I need to, and they physically came to the shop.
Oh, really? They came down.
Yeah. They came down and printed the stuff for me. Like they were like, here's how, it wasn't like, here's our ink. We couldn't even get it through a distributor. We had to go direct through them.
Okay.
So that's how small they were as far as, you couldn't just go to a supply shop or order it even online.
Yeah.
Early on. So
I communicated with them probably last year, about getting their ink here because you can't get it. I mean, you might find somebody flogging some of it here and there, but they don't do it here. And I'd really love, because I'm about where I'm at in the business, which is front line. My background is business, and so I don't do the printing anymore. And it's probably the same for you. I'm much older, I think, than you, and my body can't take it apart from
I'm
anything else.
50.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
50 years old.
Oh,
So
you're a young fella, right? I'm in my mid 50s, so we're pretty close.
okay, well, you're not that much, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so I'm really kind of, I'm going to say science, but I'm not a scientist or anything like that. But I'm into the
Yeah.
science of it. I want to know about
Sure.
inks. I want to know, about whether we should do discharge again or water base again, and I want to experiment with things. I want to talk about Stampinator as well because you use that, but we'll
Yeah.
come on to that. Are you okay
Yeah.
for time? You going okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I'd like to speak to Monarch again and see if there's any way we can get their stuff here on a regular kind of model.
Well, I have an in with them because they're my sponsor for the
Oh, well, there you
podcast.
go. Okay.
So, so actually they give me ink to give away. So I could ship you some. I don't know how well it's gonna, last in the shipping. I guess you can ship to Australia, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we ship stuff
I've
over. Yeah.
I've got probably they probably gave me about 25 quarts to give away. So
Oh, okay.
I can at
Well,
least give you a quarter white. I could try to send you one.
yeah, no, that'll be
We'll have to
really
work out
cool.
the details. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that. That sounds good. Um, Now let's jump back again. So you've had this rapid growth. You're in your third premises. It's
Mhm.
huge by the sound of it. I think you said 4,500 square
It's
footage is
5,700 square feet. Yeah.
wow, nearly
Yeah.
6,000. But the other thing I heard in the middle of that is your wife now works full time with you in the
She's full
business,
time.
and
Yep.
your son as
Yep.
well.
My son as well. Yep. So we're family business. Yep.
What age is your son? What kind of is it?
My son is 24.
And so does this
He's
look like his career? Is he going to continue, or does he
yeah,
have?
he's basically gonna be handed the business. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
That's
this is his to run with. And that's why I honestly got into the influencing side of things and putting myself out there a little bit more because I wanted it to be cool for him.
yeah, right.
Because so I want him to be like, so if we can create this cool little working atmosphere where he's excited about coming to it and he's excited on how well we're doing, then he's going to carry that on.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
he does some of the videos for the Stampinator now. Um so yeah, he's talented. He's going to start writing articles for Graphics Pro Expo. So we're you just kind of we start to put ourselves out there a little bit, and those opportunities come up. And so I'm like, here you go, bud. So he's going and meeting the people that I'm meeting.
Nice.
So yeah, it works out. So, but
And so how is it,
yes, she's
working
my
on
wife's a
the
full time.
premise that she may not hear this podcast? How is it working with your wife?
It's actually really good. It's what's interesting is this is funny. So she was here earlier and she came over and she's like, I'm going home. I'm taking the dog and I'm going home, you know? And I was like, are you upset? She's like, I'm just done and I'm going home.
Yeah.
And so I go, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, sweetie, and I was just joking around. And but that's just kind of like the relationship we have at work. We kind of separate
Okay,
business from
good.
work,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so um she does her thing, I do my thing. We interact throughout the day, but our desks aren't next to each other. You know,
Yeah, okay.
I'm in production. Actually, I have an office outside of production where it's right outside my door. The lighting's better than here, and it's more interesting to look at that than it is at my wall. Um, but I have a yeah. So and then her office is in the embroidery room. So,
Okay.
which is the buildings are separated. There's a big large bay, and then there's one separate, and that separate bay has embroidery up front, and then the screen room and shipping and receiving,
Yeah.
and then that's it, and then this has all the production. So,
Okay.
in my office, and sales is right outside of production too, so the customer can actually look in the back and see the shirts being printed. So,
So you asked earlier about us getting walk-ins, and I was mentioning that we don't do that much. We're sort of mostly online and national. But it sounds like you get a lot of walk-ins, but you're also national You deliver all over the US.
I deliver all over the US. Yeah. Yeah. I have customers, like regular customers in Alabama. We do some contract work out of Texas. Yeah, we do some contract out of Illinois. We do, I mean, we're a little bit all over the place, North and South Carolina. Um, but yeah, locally in Rock Hill, our focus is local small businesses.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
that's kind of where we thrive.
Yeah. I mean, you don't do too much contract. You just, because I'm terrified of that.
Samaritans is the biggest. Samaritan's the biggest one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're still going direct to customer in that anyway. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
We bid on jobs though for them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We still bid. We're in a bidding competition kind of thing, but yeah, it is what it is. I buddied up with a bunch of shops around me. So like you say, you said there's like two other screen printing shops near you. There's five in my little city
Okay.
of Rock Hill.
Wow.
And Rock Hill is very small. It's probably as big as your city, so it's similar in that it's just small. It's overloaded with screen printers, right?
Wow.
So, but I have a completely different, like there's probably, with that Charlotte area being right there, Charlotte's huge.
Hmm.
So I can, how many, I mean, if you think about how many plumbers there are in the Charlotte metro area and Rock Hill
Hmm.
and surrounding smaller cities,
Hmm.
I mean, there's probably 60 plumbers in
Hmm.
just in that area, right?
Yeah.
If I get eight of them, I'm happy,
Yeah.
right? So like to start to think of that, and then like all of a sudden we're no longer competition with each other. Nobody needs 60 plumbers
Hmm.
in one shop, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So like I became friends with most of the print shops around here. So like we have some of the same customers. They just go to them for different things,
Hmm.
and we try not to be competition. We try to keep the business actually staying in Rock Hill,
Yeah.
like so that they're not going to, Custom Ink or somewhere online and buying stuff and having it shipped across the state line, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's a good model. And I guess a lot of churches as well in Charlotte, right?
a lot of churches,
Yeah.
yes, a ton of churches. Yeah. Well, we're in the Bible Belt,
Yeah.
so different denominations and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
I know it kind
Baptists.
of works differently. Yeah, there's a lot of Baptists and Presbyterian, and down south there's not a lot of Catholics. Catholics are a northern base. That's where I was from.
Yeah.
There's a ton of Catholic churches up there, but down south there doesn't seem to be. It's more Presbyterian, Baptist, a ton of
Yeah.
Baptist,
Yeah. A
and
lot of Reformed churches in the South.
a lot of Reformed churches in the south. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay. I like the idea you mentioned about, your son is ostensibly going to inherit the business. And
yeah,
I'm kind of hopeful that will be the case with my daughter. We're not entirely sure. She's a 50% partner. She's a director she
yeah.
owns. And it was set up that way. But we didn't really imagine, I don't think, that it would turn into what it is. So I do worry
Yeah.
a little bit about that. But strategically, do you work on a big strategy in terms of where you want to get the business, let's say in a year or
Well,
5 years?
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I have to. So I do a lot of networking right now, and through the networking, you probably have heard of it, BNI, which is like Networking International.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they have chapters all over the world, right? It's the world's largest networking group,
yeah,
um, organization. So I've been networking with them for over a year now, and almost a year. Yeah, a year in June. So yeah, June 6th, I think, is a year. So it's pretty much a year. And through that, I've met some business coaches, and that those business coaches have helped me. I'm actually meeting with another one on Friday this week to try to help me to, to do just that, to add strategy to one. I'm trying to build a franchise model,
yeah. Okay.
not to franchise necessarily, but to be able to walk away and the business run itself.
Yep.
because all the processes are in place, right? So my main focus with him right now is to get all my standard operating procedures in place to really fully understand the business side of my books, because I'm not a businessman. I'm an engineer. I didn't go to business school. So like, and I didn't go to accounting school, and I didn't go to any of that stuff. So I have a bookkeeper, right? It's just, her name is Jill. She's my wife,
Okay.
and and she doesn't have a degree in it either. She's a nurse. But yeah. So, and then we have an accountant that does the taxes and stuff. But we want to be able to fully understand, like, hey, are we actually making a profit? Obviously, we're making a profit, but how can we do it better? How can
Yep.
we change things? How can I've implemented lean manufacturing into the business, so
Yep.
which has helped me to be more organized. And so yeah, I'm trying to continue that process, to be better at that side, the production side of things, which is helped tremendously. But to have that standard operating procedure, like to be able to go to my screen guy in the morning and not have to tell him about what's a better workflow than what he has, right? Like,
Mm. Mm.
we should just have those processes 100% written down, videoed, whatever, so
Yep.
that he can just be like, no, this is just the way you do things. This is it.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
this works. And so like that's my main focus now. And once I get this to where it could be franchisable, or at least run itself basically with whatever employee comes in. Again, that's why I did the auto reclaim, auto
Yep.
coder, all that, because we're just
Yeah.
pushing buttons. We're
Yep.
pushing buttons. That's it, right? I don't have to train them to coat the screen anymore. Um, so once I get to that point, then it's like, okay, now what's the exit
Mm.
for me?
Mm.
And if things are in place, the exit for me is easy, because anybody could really run the shop. Hopefully
Yep.
it's my son, right?
Yep.
But it could be one of my employees that decides that they want to take it over,
Yep.
or
Yep.
could be,
Sell it to someone else or whatever. But
sell it to someone else. Yeah.
on that, I mean, I'll just comment if I may. So a lot of the work I did in management consulting. So I've run different businesses,
Yeah.
and the last three, with the exception of another one that I ran concurrently, were all in the management consulting industry around business process design, rationalizing large organizations, these kind of 20, 30,000 personnel organizations. And
Wow.
moving to that model that you're describing of creating standard operation procedures. But there's one thing just to say right now in that your business advisors will probably be all across,
Yeah.
is that there's an interplay between standard operation procedures and human being. So, for example, in the auto reclaim, auto coding system, that's really easy in the sense that, like you said, you put a screen in, you press a button, it's going to happen, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
but at the end of that, you're going to have someone take a screen out and then just check, right?
Right.
And that
Yeah.
person needs to understand the relationship between that and having a screen that gets to press that hasn't been checked. So there's always
Yeah.
these fluffy areas around an
Well,
SOP.
yeah. And that's the thing, is that's the problem. Like, if you don't have something to be able that they could check themselves with, or somebody else can check them with, then it's worthless, right?
Yeah,
Because it's just based on the effort that person wants to put in that day.
correct.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah. And so you're trying to eliminate as much of that as possible. And so to get
yeah,
those SOPs bulletproof, but to have the right personnel or manager that can actually
right,
reflect on that fluffy area, as it were, between processes is critical, in anything,
yeah,
whether it's ERP or mechanical
yeah,
processing. Obviously, you've got that in your brain anyway from what you were doing before,
yeah,
because that's a high, that packaging area around cookies, I think it was, or whatever it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Um,
Kickies, candies, yeah,
Candies. that, that's as bulletproof. I mean, I've got a feeling
Yeah.
Anatol may have even had a history in some of that kind of
Oh
engineering.
yeah, they were a mechanical engineer. Yeah, they were an engineering equipment manufacturer. They just happened to do screen printing equipment too, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah,
Let's talk about that.
yeah. That's
If
theirs is interesting. Their story is interesting. He's an engineer. He's an engineer too. Mr. Anatol is an engineer.
Anatol,
Yeah.
the elusive Mr. Anatol. I sometimes wonder whether he's a real person, but I know he is.
He lives in Chicago.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I know he's a real person.
Yeah.
I've never
So,
met him, but
what made you choose Anatol? Why them?
well, it was my footprint in my shop and the fact that it made sense. So here's the thing. I, I'm an engineer. It's just when I designed equipment for the engineering world, I designed it two ways. I did it pneumatically and I did it servo driven.
Yeah.
And so you always designed the machines in pneumatic and servo. Why? Because pneumatics machines were always the cheaper, the cost effective machine that could do the same job as the more expensive servo driven. A lot of the machines that you built in the packaging world could survive, because the pneumatics, that it's one of those processes where they have the mechanics there anyways. Um, they can replace a cylinder. It's not that big of a deal if it's not super precise. But when you start to do 700 products a minute
Mm.
in packaging,
Mm.
it becomes really important on being as accurate as possible. So so I would you get higher speeds, you would get more accuracy, you would get a lot of benefit from going to the servo drives, right? So so to me, it's an upgrade. A servo driven electrical 100% electrical servo driven machine is an
Mm.
upgrade to a pneumatic machine because the air lets out. You got to rely on a compressor and a chiller, and the cylinders they might start to drift on you. It might have to take a minute for that sucker to get fully extended, and then all of a sudden you've now misprinted, or
Mm.
you failed. You got a leak. They constantly leak. You blow the hose, something happens, whatever, right? Well, that's tough, and it's a lot of maintenance. Flip side of that, servos is no maintenance. It
Mm.
does the job every single time.
Mm.
I've had that machine for 5 years. It's paid off it'll be paid off this year, I think. And I've never had one problem with it.
Yeah.
I've never had to replace a motor. I've never had to replace a servo. If I did, I know how to replace it because I
Yeah.
have the experience in it.
Yeah.
What it does is it scares away all the old school guys because they've only ever printed on pneumatic machines.
Yeah.
But like it's so quiet when we had the open house here. Like I said, we're sitting here having a conversation, and this machine is running full speed, and we don't have to scream.
Yeah.
It's super quiet. Like
Yeah.
and so like the entire shop is is buzzing, right? It's nice little steady buzz of just the squeegee coming across the screen.
And the beep.
You don't hear and the
The beep.
beep. You don't hear
Yeah.
the and all that other stuff, right? Well, and so that whole thing is why I did it. One, it was an upgrade. Two, the footprint fit my office at the time, my shop.
Yeah.
And so and I didn't have to worry about buying a compressor and a chiller.
Yeah.
So that was really it was cost at first and the fact that had some knowledge of it. But I went and bought another one um because I liked it so much.
Yeah. It says it all. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're alluding to the fact that we've got one there, but I don't know what a pneumatic one sounds like. So I get that this
Oh,
is quieter. But
yeah.
yeah, is it really that bad?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well, imagine it's doing that on one head, and now you've got eight heads doing it, right? So it's just
Noisy.
chaos. And if
And the
you had
sound of
multiple machines doing it,
And the compressor makes a constant, well, not constant, but it makes a big
Yeah,
noise. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's loud too. I have a compressor. The only thing I have a compressor for is the Grunig, the autocoder.
Yeah.
That's air driven.
Okay. Yeah. All
But
right.
yeah, it's great. Um, all that. Yeah, that's why I did it. And I tell people to this day, I'm like, if you listen to the first episode of our podcast, or we talk about, or second episode, we talk about moving to an auto. Um, like I tell people, I'm like, listen, don't kid yourself if you don't think that every single one of those manufacturers are not waiting for Anatol's patent to run out, and it runs out. It's out in 2 years.
Is that right?
So the patent is, yeah, the patent is only, it was only a 14 or 12-year patent or something. It was not a full patent, like to where they could keep it a secret. So
Hmm.
that whole thing, like they did it one way. Rock already has a pneumatic press or a electric press. The only thing they did differently was made the lift table um,
The arms.
pneumatic. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
The arms, I think was
Yeah.
the, so yeah, so everything else is fully servo driven, right? And so yeah, so that's their newest ones actually hasn't been out yet. It hasn't come out yet. And it's almost 100% electric. I think there's just like small things on it that are pneumatic. Like, but they felt they had to, I think, because of the patents or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
soon as that patent runs out, I guarantee you, we mark it today, guarantee you that M&R is going to have a fully auto or fully electric. Rock's going to have a full electric. The Workhorse will have a full. Everybody's going to go to it
Hmm.
because it's a no-brainer. It's an upgrade.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Anatol just went to it first. I mean, and Anatol didn't do it perfectly. Obviously, they struggled. So,
Yeah.
but you know, nobody's
And
perfect, but everybody's got a good press.
you
Um,
mentioned earlier that you're using the three
Sorry,
point.
my wife's texting me
Oh no,
real
you
quick.
go right ahead. That's okay.
Cool. All right.
You still okay for time? Don't want to.
Yeah, I shut the alarm off. That's why I was fiddling with my phone because I was like, "Uh oh, the alarm's about to go off." So
Okay.
because it's not used to
Um,
being not used to me being here. But yeah,
you
I'm
mentioned
good for
earlier.
probably another 15 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Just a couple of things then. One is you mentioned that you're using the registration system, the Anatol registration system with the 3 point platen that goes in or pallet that goes
Yeah.
in. How are you finding that? Are you using the full transparency system? You know, it's got like a kind of quite
Yeah.
significant, it looks quite
Yeah.
onerous to me, to be honest, where
Yeah.
you put the
It is.
transparencies on a
Yeah.
matrix.
So here's the thing. I'm not paid by Anatol. I am like kind of an influencer for them a little bit. So I don't. I'd rather not talk terrible about them, but the reality is I'm going to tell you the truth. The registration system is not fully dialed in yet for them. I've tried to work out the kinks, and we actually crashed the machine. Anatol was great. When we crashed it, they fully replaced everything that was broken when we crashed it. But it was me trying. It was my employees trying to run it, you know, on the auto and try to do it. And I said, "There's something not right here, and we're trying to work through it." And they really just don't have it fully kind of worked out to where it's perfect. I
Yeah,
think it's because of the way that how you register the side clamps and everything, and how
yeah,
the arms and everything are set up,
yeah,
so that it's kind of hit and miss there. So like I said, Anatol was great. They replaced everything, no questions asked. And I have a new registration unit system, the jig, but
yeah.
my employees are afraid to use it because they crashed the first one, and I'm actually afraid to use it honestly. But so Trilock has figured it out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so but Trilocks is the same. You're still using the registration. You're still using the transfer sheets.
yeah,
You're still doing the same exact thing on a Trilock. Same thing with Vastex, the manual version. So, and that's what I had, the manual Vastex version.
yeah,
So my employees were used to doing pin registration anyways for pre-registration, pin pre-registration, basically using the sheets.
Yep.
So yeah, I had to do the setup for the jig. I still use the same board I used when I used the Anatol. I just put the new decal over it.
Yep.
So but it's the same one.
Yep.
And so yeah, I still it's I don't have to put my screen on there anymore, so that's good because that registration's actually in the inside of the actual exposure unit. It's actually
Yep.
on the glass, like a
Yep.
Trilock.
Yep.
So so we're used to it. It works great on the manual. It's just on the auto. It's trying to get it to not bind
When
up
you,
when you're tightening the
when
clamps
you
and the
clamp the
screens.
screen down. Yeah, when you clamp the
Yeah,
screen down, there's a little bit of movement. We've got that
yeah, it
same issue.
just
Yeah. And
yeah.
we're trying to work that out, but you'll be able to work it out because you're an engineer and conscious of
Well,
time. Let's
yeah,
talk about the Stampinator because you guys
yeah,
have a Stampinator in your small auto, I
yeah,
think. Is that right? Tell
yep.
us about that. Why did you decide to go with that? Do you have any flashes running on
Well,
it as well? Or is it
yes, I do. Yes, I do. So, I first saw the Stampinator at at Made Labs and Printed Threads in Texas. I saw them running it, and I saw the quality that was coming out, and it was so smooth, right? And
really?
so
Yeah.
then I went to ISS Long Beach and uh, and met Jeff from the Stampinator, Ferriucci, and I met him, and I was like, hey, I'm having an open house. I want to get I think it would be really cool if you could make it. I'm gonna buy a Stampinator, and he's like, heck yeah, man, that sounds great. I'm always looking to. I don't have it on an Anatol yet, you know. So we just got to talking, and so I ended up ordering one, and he came in. He was like, well, I'm gonna be there. I'll install it. So we installed it the day of the show,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know what I was getting. Like I just knew that it made the print super smooth. So we had that thing running within 2 hours of I had all the electrical ran. Everything was there for it, but we just basically a replacement for the flash.
Yeah.
And all we did was stamp down the fibers. So it works as a flash. It'll dry wet ink.
Amazing.
So it's a heat press basically on
Yeah.
press.
Yeah.
And so we printed the underbase and stamped it, so it completely stamped down all the fibers and made that white underbase glass.
Wow.
And which then I put my top colors on, and what I realized is you could go high mesh top colors. So I was doing 200 mesh on my top colors, and I was using less ink and getting better coverage because the bottom was smooth, the underbase was smooth. And so we ran those, and everybody's like, the feel of it is phenomenal, right? Well, the Monarch ink combined with the Stampinator on an AS color, which is what this is, it's like the best. Like
Yeah.
it's like the ultimate setup, right? Because then you're like, man, it feels like water based. It's plastisol, you know, and uh, and so I was like, this is great. And so he ended up, like I said, he was there, and we were talking with him, and he goes, I want to give away a Stampinator. And well, I had 36 shops or something in that first day. And so I was like, hey, everybody who wants to give away a Stampinator. And you thought that they were going to lose their mind because he's pretty popular. It's pretty popular here in the States. And I go, like, Jeff, what are we going to do if it's a manual, like a manual customer? Because there's manual shops here.
Sure. Yeah.
And he goes, well, I'm developing one for the manual too. It'll take 6 months to come out. If they can wait, I'll give them. I'll do I'll do a manual version of it for them. And I was like, all right, cool. And he goes, you know what? Screw it. I'll give one of each away.
Wow.
And so
He's a nice
he gave
guy.
away he
Had a
gave away
chat with
two
him.
Stampinators. Yeah,
Wow.
and
Maybe they'll run
super
one
nice
at the
guy.
open house down here.
Oh my
We're pretty
gosh,
keen.
they're great.
We're pretty keen. We're pretty keen on getting two and putting it on this auto. Um, We also want to look at using supercolor transfers
I use
for
them too.
those small
Yeah.
jobs, because normally anything less than 100 garments with a,
And you can stamp right on press in line.
yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're always turning away full color jobs where, they're small runs, because you don't want to set a simulated process up for 50 t-shirts or whatever. It's just,
Well, here's the interesting thing is since we were the first ones to have it on an Anatol, he sends shops to us to tell them how to set it up. So we're
right. We'll be in touch.
so so I did a video for Jackson did the video for the Stampinator for how to do this off contact and how to fit it in and set it up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Two last things. One is a shout out for your podcast, Last Call for Plastisol. Why did you call it
Yeah.
that? That's a very unique name.
So me and Christy's another shop owner. We met 7 or 8 years ago. Um, just goofing off with the screen printing, and it got big, obviously. Um, but we were in screen printing 101 together. Like, so we took that class I took. I met her, right? So she ended. Long story short, she was at the show. She's currently on the board of decorators for Gildan.
Mm.
Or and so she was at the show, and she's like, hey, why don't we do a screen printing podcast, take this kind of momentum we have and run with it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And uh, and so we started coming up with names, and we basically said, hey, the funny thing is like most people sit around and talk about business at the bar after work, or and over a beer.
Mhm.
And so we were like, well, the printer's happy hour, we'll call it the printer's happy hour, and we'll keep it fun and light, and maybe we'll crack a beer open and talk about screen printing, on and the printer's happy hour was actually already taken.
Oh,
So
okay.
as a podcast name or whatever. So along the same lines, I was like, well, they're always saying last call, so I said, how
I
about
got it.
last call for
I got it.
Plastisol, the Plastisol
Hence the
ink. So
beer. Hence the
hence
beer.
the beer. It's still
Yeah.
the same thing. So what we'll do is we'll sit around like we'll sit like we're standing at a high top bar, and we literally crack beers and say
Nice.
cheers, and uh and so we'll have the beer, and we'll talk about screen printing, and we'll have a guest on, and we've got a beer sponsor,
Yeah. Well,
and PMI tape is our What's on Press Wednesday. And basically it's just a little contest we have, and so we encourage other printers to show us what's on their press, and we give them a free beer, or basically we say we'll buy you a drink.
yeah.
And so it's the theme, right? It's just the
Yeah.
last call for plastic. So we buy them a drink for that, and then our sponsors are top shelf sponsors, and so we just kind of keep that theme running through it. And so yeah, so last call for plastisol is we run it. It's a video podcast. We do it every 2 weeks. We do it live, or not live. We record the guests live. So all of our guests have been in our shop. So none of them have done like this online.
Yeah.
We'll have to eventually move to that, but we're trying to get local shops, local people. It's geared towards smaller printers just
Yeah.
getting started. It's the
Yeah.
ones like you said, there wasn't anybody that you could learn from. We want to offer our services to help people. So there's a coaching aspect to it. There's helping give detailed information, something that people are going to be able to walk away with some screen printing nuggets on building
Yeah.
their business or being better at it. Like
Yeah.
today, like our conversation, people can walk away from our conversation and have something that they learned. And so that's kind of what it is, and we kind of have fun with it. And that's every 2 weeks. You can look for it on YouTube, Last Call for Plastisol. We have a website, lastcallforplastisol.com, and our Instagram page. And it's me and Christy Rossi from Snatch and Run, which is just a local shop. And she's also talks about the Gildan Board of Decorators. And obviously I talk about the things we're doing with Anatol and our
Mm.
sponsors and things. So
I've been
yeah.
enjoying it. Yeah, no, I've been
Yeah,
enjoying it.
thank you.
So
Thank
you've
you.
got a
It's kind of laid back. It's not very too serious. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
which
Yeah.
is great, but it's got a different feel to it than many of the podcasts. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate them all, but I really
Yeah.
appreciate yours too.
Yeah. And the good thing is what, like, we're friends kind of with, I mean, Christy's more friends with Dylan than I am, but Dylan and Andy from Shirt Show, but I've met them. And so it's nice to have those guys supporting us.
Yeah,
Like they encourage us, which is a good thing. That's, they're a big podcast.
for
We're
sure.
we're 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 very small. So
Yeah, no, so
um
are we.
yeah.
Small ones.
Yeah.
So last question, also on the back of what you were just saying, excuse me. Okay, small shop, or even someone moving from kind of maybe hobby to, serious commercial.
Yeah.
We're going to print for people. What would be your number one piece of advice?
Wow. Ugh. Um, I mean, customer service is the most important thing.
Yeah,
Like,
amen.
don't don't try to don't oversell yourself to please the customer just to try to be like the other shop. Like,
Mm,
don't worry about what the other shop is doing. Do Sell and treat that customer the best the way that you can for what you can do for them. And I see a lot of people coming in and saying, we want to be like your shop, don't be like my shop.
mm,
Or they want to be like the shop down the street, and
mm,
they're an auto shop and they're a manual shop and they just want to be able to keep up with their pricing. Don't do like Stop. Don't do that at all. Just focus on your customers. Like, the number one thing, we've gone 5 or 6 years on, actually longer than that, 7 years on Google with a 5-star review. Nothing less than a 5-star review. Why? Because the customer is never going to walk out of here with something they don't like,
mm.
and that may mean I have to lose money on the job.
Sure.
But the customer is always going to walk away with something that they want. They're never going to walk away with what they don't want, right? So that means if something's wrong, we fix it
Mm,
all the time, every
mm,
time. That customer relationship is the most important thing. So if you can treat the customers the way that they would want to be treated, the way you would want to be treated, then your business will grow exponentially. You won't have to worry about marketing. You won't have to worry about everything else, because you focused on just making that customer happy and growing that customer base. Even if it's slowly, you can take it slow.
mm,
But those people will come back to you every single time because you've treated them, you know, well. And I see so many people failing. Like, I can't believe there's shops that, say they're going to do one thing and don't do it. And
mm.
then you get the horror stories. And I'm like, so just like in, you say your customers church, a lot of churches, I'm from a church background. Relationships are the best thing that matters. To stick that church background and that culture together. Relationships are the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
So vertical and horizontal relationships, that's it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so everything else, if you can do those relationships well, then everything else is a piece of cake. So
Yeah.
customer service. Yeah.
That's been our kind of mantra around customer service too. And we
Yeah.
do get those issues. We had one not so long ago where we had someone else working on catching and clearly not monitoring temperatures of ovens. And we
Yeah.
just ended up with a
That
bunch of
happens.
cracked hoodies. But, you just like exactly what you say, you just got to sort of suck it up, pay for it, make it happen, make the customer happy. And there's something kind of rewarding in doing that,
Yeah.
satisfying in doing that anyway,
Yeah.
although you don't want that to
Oh
happen.
man, 100% transparency also. Like, I could do a bunch of stuff. Customer service, 100% transparency. Like, if you mess up, don't try to cover it up, right? Call the customer and say, hey, you know what? We messed up. Like, that they printed the back design on the front. We're gonna have to get you new shirts. Or, hey, you just realize that, 4 of these shirts are crooked, right? And the customer's here to pick them up because the printer marked ready for pickup, and now that's, oh, I'll just give them the box and don't worry, they may not notice that they're crooked. No, they're going to know they're crooked. Just say, hey, I printed 4 shirts crooked. What we plan to do is replace those shirts. And so if that's what you would want us to do, you know, we've already decided to go ahead and do that for you. We could give you those shirts. Probably you're not going to want them, so we're happy to take off that discount. If you know, just whatever we need to do to,
Yeah,
and you know,
same.
9 times out of 10, they're like, listen, man, I'm just giving these things away, blah blah blah. Don't worry about it, or yeah, just let me know when they're done, or you know what? In fact, let's just save those for next time. I'll place a second order, and 9 times out of 10, they'll place a second order and order more shirts.
Yeah,
You know, and then like, thank you for being honest. And I get a 5-star review for being honest with them,
that's right. And I
right?
think the thing that happens in amongst that, managing and growing a relationship in the hard times as well as the easier times, is you build up trust. They build up
Yeah,
trust in you. You become reliable for them, and that's what it's about. So,
yeah,
yeah, no, I think that's gold. That one for sure.
yeah,
Jeremy, I'm conscious of time. You're I could talk with you all day. I could listen to you all day,
yeah,
and it's been inspiring hearing about your journey. Ours is, I think, the next tier down, but it's a similar kind of
yeah,
trajectory. I've learned heaps, but I want to thank you for your time. Maybe
yeah.
get you back on at some point to learn some
Yeah,
more.
thanks for having me. I'm absolutely happy to help you guys out in any way I can. And yeah, please, I'd love to be back on.
Yeah. Well, for now, have a great evening. The sun's up here. I
Thanks.
can hear the guys are getting cracking on, so better go and see
All
what they're up
right.
to. But thanks a lot for your time,
Thanks.
Jeremy.